So here we are again. I've got the light on me. Wise women in conversation during these crazy times in the world at the moment. So I've got Kate with me, who I've done a chat with before on my Hello Cervix website. We talked all things cervical. That was quite a long time ago, and how things have changed in the world since then. So yeah, I just invited her on to kind of just talk about how things are in her world, how we're both kind of using the tools that we've got to deal with life, how we're putting ourselves out in the world, and how we're dealing with the responses that we're getting when we put ourselves out in the world or on social media or on our blogs, that kind of thing. So welcome, Kate. Hi, how are things with you?
Hi, yeah, pretty good. We're not in lockdown here, so that's good.
You're in Italy, so
Yeah,
things are probably a bit different there than they are in the UK. So you were just saying schools are open there, which
yeah, schools they shut in the initial lockdown, but now they're all open and seems to be staying that way. So
yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting because we took our kids out because I had just had this real sense that it was going to be like the okey cokey, in out, shake it all about. And I was just like, for
Yeah.
stability, we decided to kind of start home educating, actually, which has been great. It's been really good for the kids just to have that breathing space, really. But also, you know, I'm feeling for kids, their mental health, the mental health of children with all of this going on, who aren't seeing friends and kind of stuck at home. We were talking earlier about, you know, the stories that we're hearing of kind of suicides and violence, and I think that's, you know, one of the main reasons I wanted to start doing these kind of recordings was kind of really to kind of give a bit of hope to people and maybe talk a little bit about how we can keep our mental health up and the things that we can do to be resilient in these times. But I know you're a writer, so you're doing lots of writing and courses and blogging and stuff. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you've been doing, Kate?
Yeah, work-wise, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I work as a parent educator. So I do some online courses and consultations with parents, helping with children's issues and also our own issues as parents, the stress of parenting. So I do that, and I've also been writing about the pandemic. I just put posts out on Facebook because I just felt that what's happening and the way it's being handled is really wrong, and that I just wanted to use my voice to express myself. And I also kind of realized that I get paid for writing articles, and I also kind of realized that I'm always kind of adjusting my voice to fit these different magazines, newspaper, and this whole situation kind of threw up for me how when we're not able to speak truth in this reality. And so I just thought, well, I'll just put it on Facebook and say what I want from now on. So yeah.
And how were they, what was the response to your speaking your truth? Because I mean, that was one of the things that we actually talked about, didn't we? We talked about the connection between the cervix and the, you know, the female organs and our throat and our mouth, and kind of, do you remember we had that? It was quite a long time ago.
Yeah, no, I've talked about that a few times.
Yeah. I mean, I just remember for me it was real kind of that awakening of like, I have to start speaking my truth, because if we don't, it just kind of gets bottled up inside us, don't we? And it can end up in illness.
Yeah, well, that's what started me during the pandemic and the lockdown. I'd actually had, I think it was flu. I don't think it was COVID, but back in February, I had this bad flu and I was just feeling really exhausted. And then the lockdown happened, and like half the day I would just spend in bed. Like I just felt like I really was so fatigued. And for me, when I feel emotional, I always often feel it as fatigue. Like I don't often feel depressed, but I feel like, oh, I feel so tired. And then when I just started to find my voice about what I thought was going on and how to express that, then I just felt better and I had energy again. Wow. So yeah, I definitely believe that like silence can manifest as illness. And yeah. and
Yeah.
finding a way to speak truth. It's so liberating, and it just feels so like energizing and good, like to dare to do it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to break these unspoken rules and I'm just going to say whatever I think.
Breaking down
Yeah.
those barriers and breaking taboos. And how did they go down? What was the response? Did you lose friends? Did you gain friends?
Yeah, it's been mixed. I've definitely, on the friend count, it's definitely up rather than down in the quantity. But yeah, like some people, like I definitely, yeah, like I have been unfriended, and like sometimes that's people that I barely know, sometimes it's people that I've known for years. And it just depends on whether they can disagree in a respectful way or not. Or if they get angry because you've got a different opinion. And for me, like, I don't get angry. It's been quite a surprise to me that people get really angry at people for having a different opinion. Whereas for me, like, if someone's got a different opinion and I feel like it's starting to trigger me, then I just unfollow them, because I'm like, well, I don't want to be debating with people on Facebook all the time, but I also don't want to always read this stuff that I don't agree with. So I'm just like, unfollow if I find that it annoys me. Otherwise, you just leave it there. Yeah. So yeah, just, you know, like an old friend called me, like, you know, you're a tinfoil hat wearer, you know, and they just kind of like, what I've noticed is that people don't always read what you actually say. They just kind of respond based on some kind of what I think of as a program. It's like they've read in the newspaper that people that hold this opinion also hold that opinion, think the earth is flat, are completely crazy. So yeah. But then I've also, on the other side, I have had really a lot of support from people that think similar, and are just really grateful that someone's put into words how they feel and think about it.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, because I just think the way you articulate yourself is so beautiful. You're such a brilliant writer. You know, I kind of read your post and I go, yeah, that's what I meant to say, but I just couldn't say it like that. I do encourage people to check out Kate's Facebook, and I'll get your links for your blog and stuff like that and put it in this. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I mean, I've mostly shared other people's stuff. I haven't put a lot of my own, because I just think other people write better than me, or other people are saying things better than me. But yeah, I had one person who just literally, I think it was something that I shared about the hospitals, you know, not being as busy as they're saying they are. I mean, being someone I've been in and out of hospital all year, and I go past the COVID ward and there's literally no one there. I mean, I went into A&E in March, and the nurses were twiddling their thumbs. I was sat outside waiting for my husband to pick me up, and they were all coming out just going, God, that was the longest shift ever. It was so boring. Because, you know, there was nobody, even A&E, you know, I was the only person in A&E. I was so kind of like so many doctors around me. It was great, but I was a bit like, what's going on? And I posted something about that, and I got absolutely hammered, you know, saying that, you know, I was lying, or, you know, and I was called a Satanist, that I was a dark work, all this stuff. And I did decide to kind of delete people, and then I was kind of like, oh, you know, this whole stuff about cancel culture came in, that we're cancelled, and I decided to kind of just, I think if, you know, if someone's abusive and they're being rude, and actually at that point, what I was going through myself, I didn't need any more trauma coming at me of people calling. Exactly. But I kind of quickly realized that we were being put in this position where we were being divided. It was kind of like, you know, you're either for or against, or you're this or you're that, you're Trump, or you're, you know, or you're you know, sorry, my kids are like, bye. Yeah, you know, yeah, you're a tinfoil hat wearer, or you know, it was just like, what? And I just decided quite quickly, it's like, actually, we all need to be compassionate and accepting. You know, it's like, yeah, you're a mask wearer, or you're not a mask wearer, or you're, you know, it's like the divide was becoming quite apparent. So yeah, I mean, I quite enjoyed reading the responses on your posts, and how, you know, it's almost like we need to listen to each other and actually have the conversation in a sensible way and not attack. And that was, and again, on social media it's really easy to attack people, especially when you don't know them very well. It's just like, just lay into them. And yeah, that kind of troll culture that we've ended up with. Yeah. So have you come to any conclusions about what is this all about? It certainly feels like we're all spending a lot more time online in our houses.
Yeah, I do. I mean, yeah, I think for me, years ago, I think it was about maybe 5 years ago now, I read some books by David Icke. I know, like, everyone's like, oh, the crazy conspiracy theorist. And it was just complete chance that I had no intention of really getting into that kind of information. It just kind of came to me by chance on the internet, and I got curious and I bought one of his books. And I was really surprised, because I thought, his image in the media is like crazy conspiracy theorist. And when I opened these books, I was like, oh my God, like there's so much evidence, or like kind of circumstantial evidence that's suggesting that something might be true. And I just felt like, I think that he, not necessarily right about absolutely everything, but he might have a point. And I was quite surprised. And I bought another book. And then I got to the point where I was like looking at reality and was like, oh my God, reality is completely different to what I think it is. And I got quite scared. And in the end, I spoke to a friend of mine who also had another friend who was in a similar situation, who wasn't sleeping, and I wasn't sleeping that great either. And we just kind of talked about it, and we were like, well, we know something's up in the world. We don't know the details, but we know there's a lot of corruption and something's not right. And then we just decided, well, this isn't serving me to look at all this information all the time. I need to go back to my life and just think about what I can do. The actions that I take are the same, whether I'm reading this stuff or not reading this stuff. I just want to do good in the world and, write and help parents or whatever I'm doing. So I just kind of left it. And as the years went by, I kind of felt like, is it true? Is it not true? I felt in my gut that there was a lot of truth in those books, but I kind of ignored it because I wanted to kind of fit in and just connect with the normal people, whatever. And then because of the pandemic, it just threw it all up again. And I thought, I need to go back and like look at information and see like what is going on. So yeah, like I definitely feel like there is an organized plan behind this pandemic, and that it's not for health reasons. Not to say that there's not a virus. Like, I think it's highly likely there is a virus and it is making people really ill. That's I definitely think that's likely, but that this is about something else. And I don't know how much you want me to go into, or
it's that balance, isn't it, of kind of like, because I said to you I think when I was messaging you, I was just like, it's, we stick our head down the rabbit hole. Like, you read those books and they're quite dark, and it's quite like, when you first read them, you're like, whoa, you start looking at the world in a very different way. But you need to balance that with the light as well, don't we? I mean, it's kind of like, just you can go, how do you stay sane when you put your head that far down the rabbit hole of like all the conspiracy theory stuff, that whether it's the Satanist stuff and the child abuse and the the government control and the whether it's the vaccine agenda. There's so many, 5G, all of it. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. I mean, we could probably spend hours talking about all of that. There's lots of YouTube videos with David Icke and all these people kind of going into all of that stuff. I mean, how are you kind of managing to stay balanced and hold that information in your life, I suppose? I mean, I think everyone will make their own conclusions of kind of what's going on. I mean, to me, it just
Yeah,
there's,
absolutely.
there's a control element, isn't there?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that we're completely out of control. You know, we can't control the 5G satellites, and we can't control whether they're pushing the vaccine. We can only make our own personal choices around things.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like with I did get quite upset about the 5G and the satellites, and I just kind of had to accept that we're going to have to evolve to deal with these things and stay as healthy as we can, really, you know, be proactive in looking after our own health, you know, stay in the light as much as I can. It's like I do Reiki, give myself Reiki every day, kind of, you know, get out in fresh air, get out in nature, although balance, you know, have a really good balance of like you're looking at the shadow, being aware, not in denial of it, but what can I do to kind of keep myself sane?
Yeah, I think for me it was like kind of phases, because like when the pandemic first started, like I was like searching for information, and it felt at times almost like a bad habit. Like I kept saying, I really don't want to look at all this information, and then I'd be drawn in, like especially if I was feeling tired and run down. But it did seem to be some kind of process, because I don't know how long it was, like after maybe 3-4 months, I started to remember, oh, like before this happened, I was an optimistic person, I was a hopeful person. What happened? And I also believed in like that we can create our own reality, you know, that we can use that we can look after our health and our well-being and feel good and have positive thoughts. And I do feel like I've had experiences where things I've thought have manifested, and I've always been taken care of in my life. Like good things happen, luck comes my way. So I was like, how can I what happened to that part of me? Like now I'm in the doom and gloom, like we're all going to be like microchipped and blah blah blah. And
so it's like feeding that stuff. We're almost feeding it and creating the reality by feeding it, aren't we?
Yeah, that was my also concern. Like I really wanted to be, I'm not a bury your head in the sand kind of person. I don't think that because I think that sometimes when you don't look at it, it's like a fear, that so that you haven't dealt with the fear inside of you and you haven't acknowledged it. And there's this kind of high vibration that I feel when I discover something that feels really true.
Yeah.
And that it is good to uncover the darkness as part of finding the light, but it is that balance. And I just started looking at it from a greater spiritual perspective and finding like spiritual teachers that made sense to me and that were talking about real life events, rather than like, I feel like there are some spiritual people that I can't resonate with them if they're not talking about the elephant in the room. Like they don't seem to be talking about the news and what's happening.
So who's inspired you?
Well, like Magenta Pixie, she's a psychic, and some similar people to that,
like Laurie Lab.
Yeah, those kind of ones. I mean, then it all gets into the the politics of what's happening, and you have to kind of choose how you align with that. But I still feel that when I listen to Magenta Pixie speak, I just feel like I trust her. She makes a lot of sense, and I have this kind of sense that I trust that she is connecting with who she says she's connecting with and getting good information. So yeah,
I really like Lee Harris. He's a channeler, but he doesn't get into politics. He stays. What's interesting is he hasn't really got into any of the conspiracy stuff. He says, just be careful what you're feeding. Look at it, but don't allow it to really manifest, and I just and his guides are always so positive that it could have been a lot worse. They keep saying we could have been a lot worse. You've chosen a good timeline. But I've also really enjoyed listening to Charles. I can't remember his
Eisenstein.
His stuff's really good. His writings are really good as well. So there's a lot of people out there who are kind of really doing a really good job of shining a light on the dark, but kind of putting a spiritual, I suppose it's that kind of that spirit for me, a bit like, you know, Laurie and Magenta. It's kind of like, this is part of our ascension, our evolution,
Yeah,
you
because
know.
I had no, until I found like Laurie and Magenta, I had no idea that was going on. And it also kind of brought me back to my spirituality, because like before, my daughter's 9, and before she was born, I used to meditate a lot and do all kinds of things, and I kind of just let it all slide. When she was born, I was kind of like back in the physical world, like in a good way. Like I was, you know, being a mom and doing all these physical things and not feeling super spiritually connected, but that was just that phase. And now I feel like the positive side of this pandemic is I mean, for me at least, it's like now I need those spiritual tools. So it's brought me back into meditating a lot. And so that is a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because that's, yeah, motherhood, you have to be in your 3D. We have to really be in the 3D world and be looking after our kids. And I've actually started, you know, doing a bit of meditation with my kids and getting them to do a bit of breath work and kind of, you know, teaching them those tools as well to kind of keep them calm. And, you know, it was interesting, the first lockdown when we took them out of school, how much they were sleeping and just lying in bed and reading, which they just didn't have time before, because they were like up in the morning, go to school, you know. It was always that stress. And actually, you know, I think for a lot of people, although the lockdowns are I think if you're not used to being at home or used to spending time with yourself, it's really difficult. But I quite like being on my own, and I quite so yeah, and that slowing down of life has actually, you know, been quite a blessing in some ways for a lot of us. But I know for a lot of people it's very difficult, and it's really easy for me to say when I'm living in West Wales, where it's, you know, I've got green outside my door, I'm not in a tower block in London, you know. It's finding those tools that you can use to keep you sane in whatever way possible. Yeah. So looking for spiritual teachers online, I'll add those links. I did a talk with Indra last week, and we put Dolores Cannon. Do you know her work?
I've heard of her. I haven't got into her, but
that really helped me. She talked about the 3 waves of volunteers that have come in. So I have to kind of go, well, we volunteered to be here at this time. It's like we're here for deal with it. You're here for a reason. You know, and knowing what your reason is. And it was just like came really strong to me, you know, this year. It's like, you know, my purpose is to really shine my light and shine a light on what's going on. You know? And use my voice in whatever way I can. And I think that has been the case for a lot of people, especially, you know, those of us that are doing this kind of work. I mean, I know that, like, I think I put on my Facebook like almost the first inklings of this. I was like, this is all smoke and mirrors, something else is going on. I don't know what it is, but it just, my intuition was just going, this isn't right, there's something fishy here.
I think that was the case for many people before you actually realize what the problem is. That something's not right. And I think many people think that, even if they might not have looked into anything or researched anything, but they just think, it's not all adding up.
Quite right. No, and of course, this at the moment, everyone I speak to is just going, can't wait for the vaccine and everything will go back to normal. And I just keep going, research, do your research. It's all a big experiment. And of course, you know, I'm one of the people that's priority for the vaccine, and I'm just like, really? Someone who's like immunocompromised? Like, no way. So I just keep saying, just watch and wait, see what's going to happen. You know, and it's I don't know. I know a few people who've had it, you know, so far they've just had kind of, you know, swollen arms and feeling, you know, pretty ill, taking lots of paracetamol and stuff, but we'll see. It's a weird. And the letter I got from the health board was so manipulative. It was just like their wording was just really kind of, and it was saying, aren't we lucky that we've got the vaccine and everything will get back to normal. And it wasn't even a case of like you can choose to have it. It was just like, you are a priority and you will be given this vaccine. And I was just reading it just going, bloody hell.
Wow. So that's not really informed consent, which should always be about that this is a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, I mean, I was in hospital a couple of days ago and I overheard a couple of old ladies arguing because one person had had the vaccine and the other one was like, well, my GP practice isn't putting it. How come you got it before me? You know, and I was just like, I just wait as long as you can before you get it.
Wait and see what happens to your friends. Although that's really awful.
Like, it's like, oh God, yes. And I even know a couple of people who've had it and have still had COVID. And I don't know whether that's from the vaccine or whether
they had the COVID afterwards.
Well, they tested positive for it afterwards. I mean, they've both just had, they're quite young. They had it because they're key workers. But I've just, not been that ill with it, but I've just been like, wow, that's interesting. I mean, there's that whole thing about, whether the tests are even, whether they even work or not. So, but I was like, oh, and it just seems like there's no such thing as flu or a cold or anything anymore. Everything's COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I find the cognitive dissonance quite bizarre, that people can say, oh, because of like all the measures we've taken, there's hardly any flu this year, and then in the same breath be like, oh, the hospitals are overwhelmed because of COVID. And it just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense, does it? Because if those measures are working for that, then how come they're not working for that? And it's like,
and then with the vaccine, if someone dies, then they're like, oh, it's because they were old and they had all these previous health conditions. But then if they die and they've tested positive for COVID, then it's always implied that they died of COVID.
Yeah, I know. It's just, it's really hard. And that's the thing we come up against when you try and put something out about it, the kind of like, wake up, look at what but my nan died of COVID. And it's like, well, did she really? I mean, my nan died of pneumonia. It's like, but maybe it would have been labeled as COVID. So it's all quite strange. So what have you got going on at the moment? What's your latest project or course or what you're writing?
Well, I haven't actually got anything on at the moment. I think I'm just doing a bit of writing, and and I think I'll probably start another. I usually start like a parenting course like every autumn and every spring. So I think I'll do a parenting course in the spring. And and what I am working on is so I'm also work as a therapeutic writing teacher, and I created like this it's like a mini book of 28 writing exercises to think positive and kind of visualize the world that you want to see, precisely for what we've talked about. And it's completely slipped my mind. So I'm just editing. So that's kind of why I'm not teaching at the moment. I'm editing that. And then when that's ready, I think I'm going to just put it up on Amazon as a self-published book. And then I might run a little writing course for people that want to work through the exercises and meet up once a week and share them.
Okay.
So that's what I'm doing.
What platform are you using for your courses? Are you using Facebook for those groups and things?
For advertising them.
Well, when you're saying you'll just like, there'll be like a support group when you bring out this.
So I think I'll do that as a weekly Zoom call, and I'm doing my groups on Telegram now.
Okay. I've moved on to Telegram as well. I'm really trying to pull back from Facebook and WhatsApp and all these ones that are, unfortunately, Mark Zuckerberg also owns Zoom. But it's like, I don't know, we need to find something that's similar but not owned by these massive fat cats that seem to be doing the best out of the lockdowns. It's kind of, it's difficult, but looking at kind of the alternatives, because I joined MeWe, but I still can't work out how it works. There's all these alternatives that have come up, and so that you can have a group on Telegram. I haven't worked that out.
So Telegram is kind of like WhatsApp, but it's quite good like if you're putting out your own material, because you can have something called a channel, and you
I've got a channel.
Oh, I need to follow you then.
I'll put my link on this.
So you also you know how a channel works anyway, so I like that. You can do like separate, you can do a group where everyone can post and chat, or you can do a channel where you put up your post. So I quite like it.
I haven't worked out I haven't been, well, I got a channel first because I found out, I think I was following David Wolf. His stuff's quite whoa. full on.
All right.
He's really deep in the rabbit hole stuff. But yeah, and I knew you
Yeah.
could use it like WhatsApp for kind of messaging, but I hadn't worked out the group stuff, so I'll look into that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
good.
you can do a group as well, like same as a WhatsApp group. So that's quite handy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. All right. Well, we shall have you. So you've got a channel as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Send me your links, and we'll put all the links with the video. Great.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Cool. Well, I look forward to your new book. That sounds really. Sounds like what the world needs right now is a little book to.
Yeah, I just kind of thought, like, for me, like having a practice that gets you out of the rabbit hole and gets you like visualizing what you want to see, instead of like giving your energy to whether it's the news or a so-called conspiracy theory, like just focusing on having hope and imagining what you want to see.
Yeah.
That's the
Absolutely.
aim behind it.
Yeah, I was listening to a meditation last week, and the teacher said, "Where are you putting your energy that you could be using it for yourself?" And I went, "Oh, like Facebook, Instagram, reading these depressing, articles about vaccines." It's like, okay, so that was one of the reasons that gave me a bit of a kickstart to do this, because I thought, actually, I want to put my energy into interviewing or chatting to amazing women who are doing some good stuff in the world and can bring in some tools. So that was kind of like the kickstart with these conversations, really. So thank you so much for joining me, Kate. I kind of feel like that's probably enough for now, because I think maybe we can have part 2 sometime when your book comes out. We could do part 2.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you
Right.
for inviting me. It's been lovely chatting.
Lovely to see you. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.